Good morning, everybody. We are here back with another Live Art Tuesday for the Red Deer Museum and Gallery. My name is Saija, and with me here today is my coworker Mike to also work on the project, show you a couple different ways you can do this.
Hey guys.
So, our project today is these silhouette button animals. So this is what it's going to look like completed. Really fun, really colorful. So I'll go over our supplies before we start. You're going to need a really nice and sturdy piece of mat board. Pick a nice color that makes you happy. You're going to need a pile of buttons, and you're going to want some really big buttons, maybe about 2 or 3 of them. You're going to want some cut pieces of yarn, about, what is that, like 5 to 6 inches. And you're going to want some kind of glue. I personally prefer to use Mod Podge. It's really it dries quicker than glue. I find it holds better, and it's a lot easier to work with when you're working with chunky things like buttons. You can also use Tacky Glue, and if you need to, you can use white glue. I just prefer not to use white glue personally because I feel like it takes so long to dry. But if that's what you have, that'll work. You'll just need to be a little more careful not to tilt your mat board too much, and make sure you have a nice, safe place to dry it after you're done. You'll also need a brush that you don't mind getting glue on. Yeah, the last thing you'll need is an eraser and a pencil. Now, you can free-form draw your animal shape. So your first step is going to be getting your animal shape on the paper. We have some templates available in the classroom here, so I'm just going to use this lovely elephant template. I'm actually going to flip this over for this demo just so you can see the lines a little bit better when I draw my elephant. So you're just going to take a pencil, you're going to go around the shape, or you're going to slowly draw your shape. I think Mike has got a whale shape started that I'm going to show you in a moment here. He's already kind of gotten a few steps ahead, which is fine, but I'll show you what he did. So there's my elephant. Just some tips. You want to make sure that the animal you're drawing is nice and big. You want it to fill up lots of the page, and you don't want too many tiny little details, because that's going to be hard to fill in with buttons. When you're working with something like buttons, you want a pretty simple, big shape that you're going to be able to fill in. Mike, do you want to show the whale you're working with?
Definitely. I'm working on a whale, and I just freehand my whale, and
You want to show it?
and I'll just show it to you guys.
So he's started. You can't see the lines as much because he's already got the buttons, but you can see that he's kind of got some of the shapes started here. And so once your shape is drawn, you can start dipping your brush in the glue. You're going to spread it on your page, and you're going to want to work in 2 to 3 inch sections and start placing buttons in the glue. Now you want to have a nice variety of sizes too, because you're going to get, if you only have big buttons, you're going to get all these little spaces in between that don't quite fit the larger buttons. So it's good to have a couple of itty bitty tiny buttons on hand. So just to speed the process up for this demonstration, I've got a button animal, got my nice elephant that's already half started. So I'm gonna show you with the actual glue here. So this, you can see that I've filled in with small and large buttons. And for the most part, we're not thinking too hard about detail here, but you might want to use some size variation in buttons to communicate some different features on the animal. So I'll kind of show you what I mean here when I do my elephant's ears. When I do the ears, I am going to use 2 larger buttons. And what that's going to do is kind of anchor the piece. It's going to give it a little more visual interest, and it's going to communicate that that's two big ears there. So perhaps you want to use a certain button for an animal's nose, or maybe you want to use, say you're doing a bird, you might want to use a bigger button for the top of the wing, because that'll kind of communicate that it's got like a shoulder blade type of thing going on. And so this is a very mellow and meditative project. You're just placing buttons, and you can think of it like a puzzle a little bit too, because you're trying to see what fits where. Now, as far as colors go, there's a few different ways you can approach doing this project. I really like just throwing a nice rainbow of buttons because that just makes it really fun, really vibrant, and I think it just kind of looks nice. However, I think what Mike is doing is he is using more blues and whites for his project because that goes with the color of the animal he's doing, which is a whale. So you can kind of see him working on that. And you don't want to be overly sparing with your glue. You don't want so much that you're leaking everywhere, but you want to make sure there's enough glue that it's going to grab the backs of the buttons. So make sure you're using a generous amount of glue.
Okay, Saija.
Hey,
I
Mike.
just have a question.
What's up?
What if they don't have either glue, like the tacky glue or the white glue? Can they use like a glue stick?
Ooh, you could try it with a glue stick. I can't guarantee it will work particularly well, though. I'll be totally honest with you. You'd have to apply very, very thick layers, and you'd have to be making sure that you're pressing the buttons in really, really securely. Whereas with this, you have a little more wiggle room to sort of just gently tap them into place like I'm doing here. But you could try it. I believe you may as well try everything once as far as art goes, because you never know how well it'll work. But from experience, I have my doubts about how well a glue stick would work. So I'm going into the trunk of my elephant here, so I want to just kind of keep it to some smaller buttons. Wonderful. So I'm almost done filling in my elephant here. So again, as you can see, I'm not worrying too much about a whole lot of detail. I just want to make sure I'm getting the general shapes well enough that I am communicating with my buttons what the shape of the animal is. And so when we're talking about the word communicating in art, we're not necessarily talking directly about talking the way we think about, communication, but rather the idea of communication in art has more to do with visual communication. For instance, means like, what do we understand from looking at the piece? Like what, so, if the artist is trying to communicate an elephant, they want to be kind of paying attention to what shapes they're using. Basically the question is, does this look like an elephant? But it can also mean communicating to the viewer a feeling. So that's a little bit more abstract, but for our purposes today, when we're talking about communicating a shape, it's just using the materials at our disposal to make sure that the viewer sees what we want the viewer to see. Okay, so the next step is we get to use a little bit of yarn. Ooh, let's see. I forgot that I needed some tail yarn, but you know what? I'm just gonna have a shorter balloon, and that's just fine. Let's use some of this red for the tail. I'm going to cut a little piece of yarn for the tail, and just very, very, actually you can either apply the glue to the yarn directly or to the page. I'm going to apply this to the yarn because this Mod Podge is a little thinner than what I used for the original demo, and I don't want to have a big sploot of glue all over my page. So I'm just going to gently put it on the tail, and I'm going to pick a cute button for my elephant tail. Let's give him a yellow tail. A little plop of glue on the button, just like that. I'm going to let that sit for a moment. The next thing I'm going to do is make the strings of the balloon my animal is holding, because I really like this elephant holding balloons. I think it's really cute. Your animal doesn't have to be holding balloons, though. That is up to you. Mike, for example, is not using his string for balloons. Do you want to hold yours up since you have some of yours ready? Just put it right up to the camera. So Mike is using string too. However, he's using it to create the ocean waves around his whale. It's looking really fabulous, dude. That's great.
Thank you.
So definitely try to think outside the box about how you can incorporate some string into your art piece, because it doesn't have to be balloons. The elephant and the balloons kind of work together because he's got that little trunk, that cute little elephant trunk that can wrap around some balloons, and it just kind of makes it fun and whimsical. But perhaps you could use the string to, I don't know, if you're doing a bird, it could become the branches of a tree that the bird is sitting on. Maybe if your button animal is a dog, it could be a leash. Or if it's a cat, it could be whiskers. So there are lots of creative ways you can make this a multimedia piece, meaning we're using a range of materials. And you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing because it's your artwork. You can just see I'm gently rolling the glue onto the string here. It's a little hard to see, but kind of checking it out in the camera there. I think you got the idea. Your hands are gonna get messy with this one, but that's okay. We're just gently tapping down those strings. Something I forgot to mention that I'm going to just point out now is I had two buttons. on the elephant's snout or trunk. Then I realized I want it to look like he's holding the balloons, so I actually peeled off the other button. And now that I have my strings in place, I'm going to glue that button on top of them. And not only is that going to look a little bit better, make it look like the elephant's holding them, but it's also going to just secure our strings a little bit better. So it looks messy now, but once it's dried, it's going to look a little bit more like he's actually holding those strings. And so my last step is just going to be gluing down those balloon shapes. Now this has a little bit of a funny back on it, so I want to use extra Mod Podge for this balloon. It's going to sit at a bit of an angle, so just getting lots and lots of glue on there. Ooh, I need to add some more. Gonna be honest with you, I'm using this one because it's a nice large button, but I generally can't say that I'd recommend using buttons that have a little hook on the back of it like this one. I'm gonna see if you can, yeah, you can kind of see that it pokes out. Not the best for this project unless you're using some really nice thick glue. But we'll make do. I think it should work all right. The other ones should glue down just fine though. But I'm making sure to get lots and lots of Mod Podge on there so they'll stick real nice. There we go. And now my last one. I'm going to use this big old white button. Nice and shiny and pearly. And there we are. So by the end of that, you'll have a lovely button animal full of nice, fun, lively colors. Mike, do you want to show how that whale's going again? Because that was looking pretty fantastic. Keep holding it up. I'm just switching your screen there. That's great. Again, I strongly recommend thinking ahead for your project and think of how you're going to use the string, how you're going to use the buttons, because like I said, so many options. You can use them for backgrounds like branches. If your critter's a dog, you can use it for a leash. So this is a good one to plan ahead for just a little bit. All right, so that's our project. I am going to quickly pop into the comments and see if we have any. I don't see any comments. We're a little quiet today, but that's just fine. So I'm going to show you next week's project. So what we're going to be doing next week, June 20. Wait. Oh, this is the 15th. Oh. I may have grabbed the wrong project. I am so sorry. Well, anyways, I can show you what we're doing on June 26th. Oh no, I did get it right. I'm looking at the screen here. It is visual investigation. Wrong date is written on here, but I do have the right project. So sorry, everyone. So next week's project is the visual investigation. This will be a lot of fun. We're going to be looking at a still life object like a piece of fruit or some flowers. And we're going to do what's called a total information drawing, and we're going to get as much information about our subject matter onto the page as possible. We're going to do a little bit of mixed media, some paper ripping. We're going to use a combination of oil pastels, a bit of watercolor. We're going to get some writing in there, some stamps. It's going to be lots of fun. All right. So thank you for tuning in. This has been Live Art Tuesdays with the Red Deer Museum and Art Gallery. If you would like to see any of our previous broadcasts, they will be available on www.reddeermuseum.com. If you go to the tab that says blog, that's where all of our projects are, as well as other fun content. And you can also find the Red Deer Museum and Gallery on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Have a great day, everybody.